When someone with Al Hollingsworth's credentials is accepted into the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame, a major dilemma is in which category should he be inducted. And this man with a hint of modesty would readily admit one area in which he would not be inducted would be athlete. But builder, certainly, and media, by all means. Al Hollingsworth joins his peers in the Hall of Fame tonight in the media category. So let's take a look at what he has accomplished. He put food on the family table through most of his career by writing and talking. The latter he did often and usually well, unless his size 12s were stuck in his mouth. And even then, he'd always wiggle his way around an issue. The former, writing, well, you never heard his words, but they were certainly absorbed in the things he had to say through his writing. In 1951, he started as a general reporter with the Windsor Tribune, and Windsor's Garth Vaughan has known Al Hollingsworth for more than 50 years, and he recalls his early days in Windsor.
He followed all the leagues, the church league, the school league, the valley league, all of them. And he knew so much about them that he started writing just on his own about these teams and what they were doing. Then he was more or less adopted by Ken Miller, reporter for the Windsor Tribune. We had two papers, the Journal and the Tribune. And so he went on staff at age 15 at the Tribune, writing about the games and the leagues.
And while working with the armed forces in the 1960s, he was sports editor of the Camp Borden Citizen and the Petawawa Post. In the 1970s, he wrote for and was sports editor of the Dartmouth Free Press. From 1979 through 1988, his influence was felt as sports editor of the Halifax Bedford Sackville Daily News. He influenced and increased the coverage of local sport in his paper. 25 years ago, Al hired current Halifax Daily News managing editor Carol Fleming.
His passion and devotion for local sports. I grew up in the TV age. That's all I thought sports was, what I saw on the tube. Al reminded me about the passion, the competitiveness, the excitement of local sports. I think that was his legacy both for our paper and by extension the community.
Al Hollingsworth was the main columnist for that newspaper, using his wealth of contacts to scoop other media with the tidbits he unveiled.
Al was a tyrant, a real drill sergeant. No, he was Mr. Everything in the newsroom. He assigned stories, he laid out pages, he wrote headlines. I think I even saw him taking out the garbage a couple of times. But no, he was a great idea guy. He gave us contacts, he gave us historical perspective. He was a real pleasure to be around, and I learned a lot from him.
In the 1990s, Al worked with Cameron Publications, running a paper in Sackville, New Brunswick, then joining a new venture, the Dartmouth Patriot. His interest was always local sports. He co-hosted an open-line radio sports show on CFDR in the mid-'80s, then switched to CHNS, where he was sport director for 3 years. He worked at MITV for half a decade in the 90s on a television panel dealing with sports and politics, two of his main loves, other than wife Sharon and his children. While working in the media and generally remaining unbiased, he voluntarily headed a zillion different community organizations, mostly connected with sports.
Then he got into coaching and organization, and that's where his real forte has been, because not only did he do that at a local level, but he did it at a provincial and at a national level eventually. He's been instrumental in organizing leagues in this province for many years, and it took 2 pages for me to list the positions that he's had in sport in Nova Scotia.
He coached baseball at Little League, Bantam, and midget levels, including a team called the Halifax Orphans, because they were unable to get a sponsor, and you can only guess who paid for the bats, balls, and registrations. He even coached the Halifax Orioles midgets to the 1961 Maritime Championship and the 1968 edition of the Orioles to the junior provincial title. By 1981, at the end of a 30-year baseball coaching career, he led the North Knoll Athletics of the Nova Scotia Senior Baseball League.
Well, he didn't just talk the talk. He really got involved. He got involved as as a manager, as a coach, as a team executive member, as a league executive member. He really made a difference.
Of course, he had to have a hand in officiating. He umpired senior baseball in the 1950s and 60s, including officiating at the Canada Summer Games in Halifax in 1969. Through all of this baseball activity, he helped found the Eastern Senior Baseball League, was president of the Halifax Minor Baseball Association, and commissioner of the Nova Scotia Baseball Association. He was president of Baseball Atlantic and led a Baseball Canada task force that laid the foundation for the establishment of 2 baseball academies in Canada. In hockey, he coached at all youth levels at one time or another, including one year, 1961-62, when he coached 3 teams in 3 different classifications at the same time. Later, he coached junior hockey, was founding president of a Halifax senior team, did public relations for the Metro Valley Junior Hockey League, then became its president, helped found the Mainland Junior B Hockey League, presided over the Nova Scotia Senior Hockey League, was president and then secretary of the Maritime Junior A Hockey League.